All right, recording started. Cool. Let's do this. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining the monthly Azure Arc Community Meetup for October. This is the post-Ignite edition, so you can expect a pretty packed agenda today. There's a lot to cover. So we'll just dive right in. Few things that are a bit more on the housekeeping side of the house. This is the the regular style that you're all familiar. Just a bit, just a few more tweaks. Yes, this call is recorded, and please mute your microphones as you are joining the call. Again, we started this process a couple of months ago that we are, shifting all the community efforts towards more of an open source kind of model. So all the recordings and all the decks are going to be available in our GitHub repository and also in the Jumpstart YouTube channel. So everything will be there for you to consume after that call. Since we started this process, just going to give people some idea. Since we started the process, we had about 70-ish people, new people joining the community. So again, we're super happy to see everyone joining this community. So obviously, this open source model is something that people can relate to, and it's easier to consume for some people. So we're happy about that. Again, a couple of links here on the slide. Obviously, if you joined this call, you're familiar with that, and we're also going to share, the links in the chat later on. Cool. So with that, like I mentioned, we have a packed agenda today. We have a few folks from the product to come and talk to you about all the latest and greatest, like we always do in the community meetup. So you can see the agenda, some community efforts. Thomas is going to talk about it later on. Again, with every community call, we also have a bit of a survey at the end that we need some help from the community. And you see a lot of things in between. There are a lot of things that happen at Ignite. We'll try to cover as much as possible. Obviously, the information is public and it's out there. And as always, this call is not under NDA. So everything that you will hear today is already publicly, or it's already public knowledge. But we'll try to provide a bit more of context and a bit more of a deep dive. If you have any questions, please pop those in the chat. We have all the product managers in the chat ready to answer. And obviously, we're going to have some time at the end of the call. All right. With that, let's just kick things off. I'll kick us off with some updates around the Jumpstart and some things that we announced, and also some updates around the landings on accelerators. Again, I have a few slides today. Try to cover those as fast as possible to give some room to the product managers as well to cover their areas. We had three major announcements at Ignite. The first announcement was around the Azure Arc enabled SQL managed instance landings on Accelerator as part of the cloud adoption framework. So that's generally available. Talk about it a bit more in a second. RBox for data ops generally available. And also HCI box public preview. I'll talk about all this stuff, and also I'll cover some of the things that's got nothing to do with the announcement, just the regular Jumpstart updates and some of the things that you're going to see in the release notes next week when we're going to release the October release notes, the September and October merge release notes. So the first thing that I want to cover is the landings on Accelerator. So if you've been following this space, and I had few talks about this. If you've been following this space, you know that probably about, 18 months, something like that, we started the process of building the landings on accelerators for Azure Arc. Actually, Azure Arc, for those of you who don't know those were the first accelerators, really. That was kind of what changed the paradigm for how we are building accelerators in the cloud adoption framework. And a lot of people are looking at the Azure Arc accelerators kind of as a North Star in terms of how do we want to provide our customers, our partners, our own field with the knowledge of how to build, or how do we provide the best practices, the recommendations, the considerations. Yes, sorry, I heard a question. All right, sorry. Anyway, so this is really how we are providing the best practices, the design recommendations and considerations. So we started this process about 18 months ago with Azure Arc enabled servers. Then we moved on to Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes that we announced at previous build event. And last week we announced the Azure Arc enabled SQL managed instance landing zone accelerator. So if you go to the Cloud Adoption Framework, again, we'll share all the links. Don't need to worry about that. If you'll go to the Cloud Adoption Framework and the Azure Arc accelerators, you will be able to see all the new critical design areas for SQL Managed Instance. This was built with partnership with the product group, but also from people from our product, from engineering, from the field, architects, customer engineers. So it was really designed by the people that are actually working with the technology on a daily basis. So you can expect a lot of details in those critical design areas. Again, just going to pick an example, no specific reason I'm picking that example, but you'll be able to see, first of all, obviously we take a lot of pride in the level of detail that we're providing with our diagrams, and also the level of depth that we are going with the recommendations and the considerations that we're providing you as part of the accelerator. So again, highly recommend go check that out. If this is, if the accelerators is something that you've been using, definitely you're going to enjoy the SQL Managed Instance landing zone accelerator. That leads me to the second announcement that we did around RBox for data ops as part of the Jumpstart. So again, if you've been following the accelerators, you know that we always include an implementation option. Now, I always say that Azure Arc is a bit unique in the sense that it touches everything that is outside of Azure, and we're building Azure outside of Azure. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because, providing an automation to simulate everything that we are recommending you or want you to consider as part of the accelerators is not an easy job. I mean, at the end of the day, we are constrained by the fact or by the notion of you will have the resources outside of Azure and the IT assets in order for you to try things out. So because we want to make sure that we're providing you with an end-to-end experience, not just the documentation and the architecture diagrams, but also with the implementation option, we always include a reference implementation. So we did this for servers, we did this for Kubernetes, and with SQL Managed Instance, we also have the new RBox for data ops. So let me switch back to the deck and share with you the diagram here. Again, this should not be anything new to you if you've been following the announcement last week. But what you're seeing here is really the architecture for the new data ops, for the new RBox flavor called data ops. And data ops is really our most robust, I want to say, in terms of automation and complexity, RBox flavor. The reason that I'm saying this is because what you will get out of, after deploying RBox for data ops, you will get basically 3 Kubernetes clusters. You will get a bunch of things to try it out. You will have Active Directory authentication authorization. I know Mikhail is going to cover this in more depth later on. You're going to get DR and business continuity simulation, so you can bounce between the clusters and simulate the DR scenario. SQL migration from on-premises to Azure Arc-enabled SQL Managed Instance, Grafana integration, a sample application, also backup and restore point in time. Again, a lot of goodies that are baked into this flavor are included. Obviously, the Grafana and all the operational layer that comes on top of all the clusters and the virtual machines that are included as part of this flavor. So again, without going into too much depth into what's what, there is a blog post. Again, I'll share that in the chat. And obviously, this is already available in the Jumpstart, so you can check it out. So that's RBox for data ops. It's the official implementation for the landing zone accelerator, and obviously can live without that. But we always like to merge the two efforts together to provide, like I mentioned, an end-to-end experience. So that's data ops. Now, the third announcement that we had at Ignite is HCI Box. Now, HCI Box is really kind of the next evolution when it comes to our flagship product. So we started with the Jumpstart scenarios when we started the project. Then we moved on to RBox, which, as you can see, is becoming more and more mature in terms of the automation, in terms of the rollout of new flavors and everything that is between. HCI Box is kind of the twin brother of RBox. And HCI Box is designed to provide a fully automated, nested implementation of HCI. This is in public preview, and it's based on 2-node clusters. And as you can see from the diagram, it includes, again, a lot of things. You will get AKS on top of Azure Stack HCI. We also have folks from the HCI team to talk about some of the things that we announced at Ignite around HCI. So that's coming later. You're also going to get Everything is going to be Arc enabled. The nodes, you have an image gallery. By the way, as of yesterday, Dale from the Jumpstart team already updated this to the new images for HCI. So you get, again, we always try to keep the latest and greatest as fast as possible. So that's already merged into HCI box. So you can go and deploy that. Anyway, resource bridge, image gallery, everything is Arc enabled, already connected to Windows Admin Center. And again, this is in public preview. So right now you'll be able to deploy this in Bicep. We're still exploring whether we should do ARM or not. We're thinking probably not, but Terraform will be provided later on at GA. Again, I want to emphasize that the Terraform implementation will be just for HCI box. This is not the Terraform model that people are asking and we're working on in the context of HCI. This is just for HCI box and the automation to deploy everything that you see on the diagram right here. So again, go check this out. I'll post the link later on. And this is something that we've been very excited about because we believe that it will help with a lot of challenges people are experiencing when it comes to actually how to go try HCI, but in a robust automation and robust implementation and not just kind of one-off single node, and all of that. So really go check that out. And I'm going to be here in the chat, and I think the Jumpstart team is also on the chat to answer some questions if you have any. All right. The last thing that I want to, or maybe one thing before last that I want to highlight is, besides the fact that we're working on RBox, HCI, and everything, the Jumpstart, the bread and butter of the Jumpstart is the Jumpstart scenarios, and we're not stopping there. So we have 4 new Jumpstart scenarios that we developed in September plus October that I wanted to mention. The first one that I wanted to mention is actually the second one on the list. We take a lot of pride in the community, and you all part of this community. The fact that you joined, this our community meetup, we are part of it, the Jumpstart. And Stel did great work on this scenario. It's a new scenario for dashboard visualization with Azure Arc enabled servers and managed Grafana. So Azure managed Grafana, a really sleek scenario, I want to say, because kind of merge 2 worlds together. And I know a lot of people have been wanting to try Azure managed Grafana, which we announced lately. So this is something that you can go and deploy today. So thank you so much, Stel, for that community contribution. We also have, as you can see, a few other updates, especially around Azure Arc enabled data services. We did some updates on KubeADM, so now we have a scenario for KubeADM. So that's something that available to you today, and obviously also the Update Management Center, so AKA Update Management or Update Manager version 2. So that's a new scenario, so you can go and check that out as well. Azure Arc enabled servers plus Update Manager. All right. The last thing is few public service announcements. First of all, I want to welcome Alejandro and Pablo. They are the new Jumpstart members. They are new core contributors to our team. Both Alejandro and Pablo have been contributing in the background for the Jumpstart. And, after conversations, we decided that it's time for them to join our team officially. So give them a warm welcome. Thank you, Alejandro and Pablo, for joining the Jumpstart team. We also have a new Azure Arc Jumpstart GitHub discussions. So if you'll go into the Jumpstart GitHub repository, and again, the link is in the slide, you will see GitHub discussions. So we're starting to work more with GitHub discussions in terms of interacting with the community, trying to understand what is working, what is not working, what do you want to see, new ideas. And we already started to post some things over there. Feel free to hop over to our GitHub discussions. Let us know if you need anything. We're listening. So just wanted to point that out. And the last update is the Azure Arc Jumpstart Overview Community Deck. So we got a lot of requests around, hey, I want to present things and I want to present on the Jumpstart, but I want to have some slides before I'm diving into the demos and all that. How do I do that? So right now we have in the GitHub repository, we actually have a new updated, refreshed PowerPoint deck so you can use in your presentation. It has all the diagrams, all the logos, the icons, everything that we use internally now available to you, so you can grab that from the repository and use it. So with that, there was a lot of updates. I'll spend some time in the chat, but I think our next speaker is Arnav, correct, Arnav? That's you? Yes.
Yep, that's right.
Take it away.
Thanks for all the updates, Lear. I'm definitely going to be checking out and testing out with the Arc HCI box, as well as that new scenario with AMA and the Grafana integration.
Yeah.
All right. So here's some updates from the Arc enabled server kind of neck of the woods. Just going quickly because we have an action-packed session with a lot of PG updates given Ignite. So with the new connected machine agent version, 3 new features associated with this. One is we have reduced the required PowerShell version for Windows Server to 4.0. This used to be 5.2 before, so this should ease up onboarding requirements in a lot of scenarios. Second, we wanted to note that the Windows Agent installer is now compatible to enforce Microsoft Publisher-based Windows Defender application control policy. We noted this several times. And finally, from a Linux distro perspective, we've added support for Rocky Linux 8 and Debian 11. We're continuing to add new Linux distros. This is a top priority through this coming semester. So always be lookout for those new distros and OSs that we're continuing to add. So those are some of the new features I wanted to call out. There were also a couple of fixes with this agent version. So first, there was the bug with tag values being correctly preserved. So we did fix that. Additionally, the azcm check command no longer validating CNAMEs, that was also fixed. We also extended the time that the agent's going to take to try to obtain the access token to up to 5 minutes. And finally, we only check the run once at a time for HIMDS startup. There were also some slight changes made to the logging during the installation process and authentication process as well to continue enhancing both of those kind of sets. Other updates, exciting news is we actually now have general availability for auto extension upgrade for Arc-enabled servers. We know this is a really exciting feature for our customers. You actually don't need to do anything. This is going to be automatically on. You have the opt-out option for new extension deployments. You can manage it from Azure portal as well, and they have a limited set of extensions that they are supporting. So whenever there is an update, it'll be able to handle that for your extensions, reducing a lot of the manual work that goes into the extension management experience for Arc-enabled servers. Another call out I had is Ansible Playbook. Onboarding is now available in Azure portal as well for Arc-enabled servers. So just as you can generate, a PowerShell script to onboard your Arc-enabled server, providing details about the subscription, the resource group where it's going to land in Azure, you actually now have the capability to generate an Ansible playbook on demand directly using those credentials, and you can apply that Ansible playbook using a controller node to onboard at scale your machines to Azure Arc. The final note we have is regional availability, which has been added to Canada East. Like our distro support, we're constantly adding new regions to meet our customers in geographic areas as well. So Canada East was added just in the last month. Finally, at the end of today, I know Jonathan Wang's going to come up and chat about the multi-cloud onboarding experience interviews that are upcoming. But I just want to say that we're a big fan of this initiative, and it's going to be focused on helping customers onboard their multi-cloud estate to Arc at scale. And so definitely pay attention and at the end of the session for that as well. So that was a quick rundown of all the updates from the Arc-enabled server neck of the woods. Over to my colleagues, I guess, in AutoManage next.
Thanks so much, Aaron.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay, so
take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Lior. Hi, everyone. My name is Akanksha Agrawal, and I'm a PM on the AutoManage team. Thank you so much for joining the call this morning. I wanted to share some exciting updates about Azure AutoManage with you all today. So very excited to announce that AutoManage Machine Best Practices is now generally available for both Arc-enabled servers and Azure virtual machines. And just for the benefit of those who haven't heard about AutoManage before, the primary goal of our service is to help customers with day-to-day server management tasks for servers that are connected through Azure Arc or those that are inside of Azure. So through the Azure AutoManage Machine Best Practices offering, we actually onboard and configure your servers. And not only that, we monitor these machines for best practices services throughout the lifetime of your machine. So what AutoManage does is it'll automatically detect any drift on your machines, and it'll go ahead and remediate that when detected. This is especially great in relation to Azure Arc because with Azure Arc enabled servers, you can take advantage of connecting to all these Azure management services. And then AutoManage can come in and help you automatically configure those services. So instead of having to piecemeal these management services and really configuring them individually, you can take advantage of our machine best practices offering to really intelligently onboard and configure, as well as monitor these selected best practice services on your machines. So we do have the option to onboard the machines to our best practice profiles, which are individual profiles for either your production workloads, or we have one for your dev test workloads as well. However, in addition to all this, you also have the flexibility to really onboard to to be able to pick and choose the services you want your machines to be onboarded to in your environment. And you can do all this using our custom profile option, which basically gives you the option to go and pick and choose the services that you think are most relevant for your environment. You also have the ability to configure the Azure security baselines by leveraging our AutoManage machine configuration offering. And my colleague Jody will talk about it more in a second. But just wanted to share that I've linked up some resources here for you all, along with our GA announcement blog, which you can follow along to get started with the AutoManage machine best practices service. Again, we really have a really easy enablement experience through the Azure portal in the AutoManage Center. You could also go to the table of contents for your Arc servers and leverage AutoManage capabilities through that experience as well. We also have policies that you could use for at-scale scenarios, as well as templates. So yeah, once again, feel free to go and check it out, as we are generally available right now. And again, this is a free service. You do not incur any cost for AutoManage machine best practices per se. Just the services that you onboard to will be charged. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Jody to talk about AutoManage machine configuration.
Hey everybody, good morning. Hope everyone's having a nice day so far. On the AutoManage machine config side of the house, we have a couple of updates that we want to share. The first one is that we have a new built-in policy that we've published to allow you to set your client and server communication protocols. And this by default sets to TLS 1.2. So we know that this has been a pain point for multi-cloud and hybrid customers for quite some time. So we're really excited to announce this capability with a blog going out today as to how to use this specifically over Arc-enabled servers. The second update that I want to share is for those of you who've used custom packages before or are interested in using custom packages, we have a feature that now allows you to add support for an allowed URL. So what this does is it allows you to optionally limit which URLs your custom policies can be downloaded from. And the way it works is that if this tag exists, then the agent will only allow custom packages to be downloaded from these URLs. And just to be clear, this also will not affect the use of built-in policies. And this is a new feature for us, so any feedback on ways to improve would be appreciated. And at the risk of not taking down the entire call by sharing my screen, I'm just going to post a screenshot of how applying this tag looks like on an individual Arc-enabled server. So just a couple of quick updates, and looking forward to hearing what's next on the Arc-enabled data services side of things. Thanks, Lear.
Thanks, Jody. All right. Let's go. Mikhail.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mikhail Almeida. I'm the PM on the Azure Arc Data Services team. If you're not familiar with the Azure Arc Data Services, we have 3 different products in there. We have Arc for SQL Server on there, and then we have Arc for SQL Managed Instance and Arc for Postgres. Those are 3 products. So I'm going to go quickly over some of the updates that we have recently announced. So we've generally announced Active Directory connectivity for SQL Managed Instance on Azure Arc. So it's GA today. We have customers already using it. If you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from it. Any challenges with that? Additionally, we basically also add the capability to auto upgrade the connector for Active Directory part of this update. Previously, you had to manually go the process of upgrading it. Based on feedback, basically now when you update the data controller, it automatically updates the AD connector as well. So we're basically easing the burden from the customer standpoint whenever you do an upgrade front point. She'll have to manually go and update the SQL managed instance, but it's one less thing you have to worry about now with this update going through. Now I'll go talk about some of the additional capabilities we're working on for the monitoring standpoint. So currently our focus now is basically helping build our goals in helping customers implement their monitoring solution with our Azure Arc Services product. And so basically we introduce a public preview, our Azure Arc telemetry router. And so now you'll be able to export directly to Kafka or Elasticsearch directly from our services itself for logs. And for metrics, we only support Kafka, but it's currently public preview. If you're interested in testing it out, give feedback. We have Lance, who's the program manager, who's working on this feature. We would love to get some feedback from you on this as well. Additionally, we basically also released an extension for Linux. For example, if you're running SQL Server on Linux on premises, you can now install the Arc extension, have it onboarded in there, and make it get the same exact capabilities that we have today for Windows Server, running on Windows Server, today for SQL Server as well. Basically, it's in public preview today, so you can get the same benefits today. Let us know how things goes. Additionally, we are working on SQL Server 2022 release candidates. And so we basically added now in the setup process of SQL Server as well, to basically install the Arc extension for SQL Server part of the process, rather than having an extra step we have to do. So we have that option added in there. Additionally, we also adding support for Azure Active Directory into SQL Server 2022 as well. So it basically allows you to have certain customers saying, hey, we want to switch to Azure AD. And so now we add the capability in SQL Server 2022. We haven't added for the prior releases, but if you have any feedback or scenarios, do let us know. We'll be happy to hear about it. Those are all the updates on my side. We have our links to our documentation there, release notes. Any issues or challenges, let us know. We'll be happy to discuss with you guys.
All right. Thanks so much, Miguel. I think we have Summer. Summer, feel free to take the screen.
Cool. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, starting over. All right, almost there. Okay. First, nothing ever works the first time. All right, so I have a few slides to go over first, 3 slides, and then I'm going to do a quick demo. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll be discussing AKS Hybrid. The first thing I want to discuss is the AKS on HCI and Windows Server September update. So September was a really big update for us, and there's 5 major developments I want to go over. The first is support for multiple administrators. So previously we had limitations around multiple administrators being able to manage the service. The person who installed AKS on HCI or Windows Server became the main admin, and all the other admins had surprisingly little access. But now we've added support for the built-in systems administrators group. So once you update to the September release, if you are an administrator on the box, you'll be an administrator for AKS on HCI or Windows Server as well. And all users in this group can now create and edit clusters, they can upgrade AKS, and they can uninstall it as well. And there's no additional steps to do on the user side. Just once you update to September, you'll have that functionality. The second is updated Linux container base image to Mariner 2.0. So we've updated from Mariner 2.0 to from Mariner 1.0. 2.0 is about half the size, so you can run upgrades faster. It also has support for differential upgrade to update just portions of the image. It has additional packages and regular maintenance updates such as CSV fixes. The third is SDN, or software-defined networking. Previously, this was in public preview, and it's been promoted to GA in this release. The fourth is offline download, which is currently in preview. So offline download gives customers the ability to pre-download the VHD before doing an install or update. We found that customers running behind a firewall, a proxy, or just in a poor network environment can have a hard time reliably getting through their update or install because it requires a large download. So this new feature gives customers the ability to download in a different environment and then bring those bits onto their system, which will help make install and upgrade more reliable in these environments. And lastly is simplified install process for GPU, which is a preview feature. So GPU support is a fairly new feature for us, and in this release, we've reduced the number of steps needed to install and use GPU. Okay, the second is Azure hybrid benefits. And this is an announcement we made at Ignite. So there are two Azure hybrid benefit plans, Azure hybrid benefits for Windows Server, which is shown on the left, and SQL Server, which is shown on the right of the screen, and the updates only apply to Windows Server. So Azure hybrid benefit has been expanded for Windows Server software assurance to now include AKS and Azure Stack HCI at no additional cost. So if you have Windows Server Data Center or Windows Server Standard with software assurance and CSPs, you can now apply this license benefit to run workloads on Kubernetes in your data center or edge location, and you don't have to pay anything extra. And then lastly, I want to discuss AKS hybrid cluster provisioning from Azure. So in our GA product, clusters can be deployed through PowerShell or Windows Admin Center, known as WAC. We realize this approach doesn't always provide the smoothest experience for some of our customers, so we've been working on simplifying the process. And AKS hybrid cluster provisioning from Azure, which is currently in public preview, is the result of that effort. So with AKS hybrid cluster provisioning from Azure, you can now deploy clusters through the Azure portal using ARM templates and Azure CLI to manage AKS hybrid clusters. So because the clusters are created from the Azure portal, Azure Arc is automatically installed on them. Some other benefits of provision clusters include being able to use the same Azure Arc resource bridge and custom location for self-service VMs and AKS hybrid, so you don't need a separate Arc resource bridge for each one. You can connect to AKS hybrid clusters through Azure Active Directory groups, and you're able to run extensions such as Defender, OSM, Azure Key Vault, and Flux too. So I wanted to do a quick demo of deploying one of these from the Azure portal. So here you'll see my Azure Arc in the Azure portal. It's very similar to creating like an AKS cluster. You'll create an AKS hybrid cluster, which is in preview. The main things that you'll have to fill in when you go through this are subscription, resource group, Kubernetes cluster name, and custom location. The majority of the rest is going to be filled in for you. The Kubernetes version, the node size. We currently have 2 node size options. More will be added soon. And you can select the number of nodes. The last thing you have to fill in here is the SSH public key. So you'll need to provide an SSH public key to log into the underlying VMs for troubleshooting operations. So the current options with this are to use an existing key or to use an existing key in Azure. Later, we will have the option to generate a key within this form, but not at the moment. But it is a feature that will be coming during preview. The second page I wanted to go over is access. So there's two options for access, and you'll see that the default is local accounts. If you're going to try this out, I highly recommend trying out the Azure Active Directory authentication. It lets you choose an AAD group, and anyone in that AAD group has admin access to your clusters. So even if someone is an admin to the subscription you're using, if they're not in your AAD group, they won't have admin access to your cluster. Another really interesting thing is if you don't go and select AAD, local accounts is the default, you won't be able to add AAD access afterwards. So you won't be able to go back and add that, but you'll always be able to use local accounts to access the cluster, since that's the break glass scenario. And through AAD, you'll be able to use the Azure CLI to access the clusters. You won't need direct line of sight into that cluster. You use the Azure CLI command, which is AZ hybrid AKS proxy, to reach into that. So again, basics and access are going to be probably the most important pages here if you're just trying it out. And on the slides, we have a link, and you can follow that just to do a quick demo and test this out yourself. And as always, please provide feedback. Let us know how it goes so we can help improve this before we go to GA.
All right. Thanks so much, Summer, for the update. Definitely at Ignite, AKS Hybrid got a lot of love, that and AutoManage, that's for sure. So excited to see everything that is happening in that space. All right, let me take back the screen, and next we have Mayuri. Take it away, Mayuri.
Hello, hey everyone. This is Mayuri from our Enable Kubernetes team. Leo, if you can move to the next
Sure.
slide. Yeah. Okay, we have a couple of updates from the GitOps side of the world. For those of you who are new to GitOps, just to quickly talk about it, this is GitOps is a process that really simplifies and accelerates your app deployment process. And the primary way that it works is that you typically have Git as a source of truth, and there's an agent that sits on the cluster. And the core idea is that you declare your application in Git or in that source of truth, and a reconciliation loop will basically work to synchronize what you have in the source of truth with what you have in the cluster, so that your cluster always maintains the declarative state that you've defined in your source of truth. Now, with this release today, what we are announcing is a support for a new type of file source with a new type of source of truth, and that's the Azure Blob Storage account. So up until now, we've had support for Git repos, Helm repos, and buckets. This is the fourth kind that we're introducing, and that's the Azure Blob Storage account. So there are different authentication mechanisms that you can potentially use for authenticating your clusters with the storage account. That's service principal with the secret, or with the certificate, the managed identity, the blob storage account key, or the SaaS token. Now the SaaS token could be at the account level or at the container level, and a local secret authentication. Local secret authentication is nothing but if you've already pre-created a secret on the cluster, you can reference that, to use for authentication purposes with the storage account. So all the documentation that you are already using for GitOps reflects all of these changes. So you can go to the tutorial pages or the conceptual pages, you'll find the commands that you now use, that you can now use to enable blob storage as a source. Now, note that the support is only through CLI for now. Portal support is in the roadmap, but the K8s configuration command or the Flux configuration commands that you're used to using, you can use those with some additional parameters to enable storage accounts. And the other update that I have for you is for Azure Kubernetes for AKS clusters. Here we have added one more authentication option, and that's the kubelet identity. So at the configuration level, rather at the at the time of creating the extension, you can now define if you want to use kubelet identity as a mode of authentication option. There's a separate parameter that you'll need to use, which is just like use kubelet identity equal to true. This is a new parameter that you add at the time of creation of the extension itself. Again, the tutorials and all of our documentation is updated to reflect that. I think these are all the updates I had.
Thanks so much, Mayuri. And I think we have Jonathan next. Jonathan, take it away.
Oh, thank you all. Okay, I think everyone can hear me now. Cool. So my part is pretty short. I'm also hi everyone. I think this is the first time speaking on this meetup. I'm Jonathan. I'm part of the Azure Arc team, and I'm doing a interview on multi-cloud administrators. So if you are a multi-cloud administrator, or if you know someone that are multi-cloud administrators that would like to have that would like to join the customer interview I'm actually conducting, please fill out the form Lior is showing on screen right now, so that I will have your contact information to go further arrangements on the time. That's the only thing I want to say here. So maybe a little bit more about like what this interview is about. So we're trying to create a product that will help multi-cloud IT admin to have an even easier way to manage the resources across platforms. And this interview is to understand like how these multi-cloud administrators actually do that right now, day to day, and what are the things that they feel they want to have in the future in Arc, and what are the things that they think that could be better. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Jonathan. Jonathan, if you don't mind, can you please paste the link in the chat? Even though we'll share that deck, please paste the link in the chat. All right, Mr. Maurer, take us home.
Thank you very much. I think I still see my perfect. Yeah, I was just going to speak one thing. If you can move one more slide on, yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I just want to highlight that we're going to do a Ask Me Anything with the AKS hybrid team. If you're interested in what they share today and also about like other questions around this topic, feel free to join our Twitter space. This will be on November 9 on Wednesday. That's 8 p.m. my time, but I think that's 12 p.m. Pacific, if I'm correct. Either way, if you click that link, I also put the link in the chat. You will actually get there and you will see the time in your case. So you can join, you can ask your question, you can just listen in. It's going to be a conversational thing if you ever join the Twitter space. So that is all what we wanted to share today.
Cool. Thanks so much, Thomas. And this is part of the ongoing community efforts that we are exploring and trying to provide a lot of venues for you to interact with us, the people that are actually working on all these awesome products. So yeah, definitely take advantage of this one. And again, it's another way to troll Thomas, which is always fun. Always my favorite. All right. I think that's it. Pretty packed agenda. We are on time. I'll leave some time for Q&A. Yes, I am bringing cookies. I'll leave some time for some Q&A. Feel free to unmute your microphone, ask whatever question that you may have, or pop it in the chat. I don't see any questions in the chat this time, except the ones that we already answered. So feel free to mute yourself. If not, we'll give people some time back. So I'll leave this open for now. Any questions from anyone? Okay. Cool. All right. There are no questions from anyone. Again, feel free to reach out. You have the Teams channel for the community. Obviously, the GitHub repository for all the decks and the recordings, everything will be uploaded today. And we're going to see you next time. Thanks, everyone.